Alright, hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Ashwin and I am back for another video. Today we are going to be starting out the first little test episode of this new series that I'm calling the No Bullshit Guide to Photography, where I'm just going to be breaking down different photo things. It can be anything from just basic camera stuff to something a little more advanced. Today we're going to start off right in the middle. So I know all you trendy sons of bitches all love going back to this nostalgic year 2000s look. Here are a couple photos on screen of the kind of style of photos I'm talking about. I just did a styled shoot around this topic, so let's go ahead and break down a little bit of what you're looking for and what things you need to get done. So based on my shoot, there's about 3 different things you really want to look into to getting this look down super well. First is you really want to think about what lens you're using. Second, think about the poses and the way you're framing and composing your shot. And then last, I've got a couple post-processing tips that should help you get the most out of your picture once you've actually finished your shooting. So let's go ahead and talk about our lens choices. Alright, so first and foremost, most of the time we see these photos, a lot of them were taken on pretty wide angle lenses. Some of them even going so far as to get super fisheye effects, especially if it's like stuff that's for more skateboarding or more action oriented. We're talking super wide. Anything wider than, I mean, the minimum is 24. That is the minimum focal length, but you can go even further. On this shoot, I used the Laowa 10mm f2.8. I'm going to put a picture of it on screen. And I loved the look of it. Now, I didn't use it for every single photo in this shoot, but I think for this look specifically, it worked out very well. Now, that is pretty much the only piece of gear, well, besides your camera, that I would say is a requirement. You can use other portrait focal lengths as well. However, if you want to get the traditional super wide, super distorted, super kind of warped look, wide angles are going to be your friend. Minimum 24, but honestly, I think 24 is a little too neutral, so I would go even wider. Think 16, 10. If you want super distorted, even go to 7, 8, 9 with some fisheye lenses, and those will give you exactly what you're looking for. Just be careful if you're going with the fisheye route, as that they are not going to be appropriate all the time. They distort the world so much that it's hard to fully justify using them all the time. But if you want that look, go for it. So you'll see in this picture I have on screen, we used a 10mm, and I think I was literally like not even, I don't even think I was a whole foot in front of her. But you can see that we're still getting some crazy body distortion, even with that. And we could have taken this even further. In fact, I know I have some examples lying around where we did, so I'll try and find some of those unedited pictures and throw them on screen so you can see exactly what I was looking with. Even though I've got this nice clear frame right here, we had to do a little bit of Photoshop magic to make it look nice. Because when you're shooting at 10mm, it's really difficult to not get stuff in the frame. Not impossible, but let's talk about the way you're posing your model or you're framing the shots. This is probably the most important bit of the whole style. What happens a lot when we're looking at 2000s images is that things are very extreme. No matter if it's sports, people, street photography, it doesn't matter what you're shooting at this time. A lot of it is very extreme. So think extreme angles, extreme poses, extreme emotions, extreme reactions, right? You want everything to have an almost obnoxious look to it. So just stay with the same picture, right? You'll notice that looking at the same angle she's at, right? This is almost a bird's eye perspective of our model. We're not quite bird's eye, but we are so high up that it might as well be. Not to mention, right, we've also got it looks like there's a giant space between her and the camera. In reality, her arms are very, very tiny. She's very, very tiny. So this is really like, I don't know, maybe a foot of distance between her and the camera. But because of the wide angle lenses we've got, and with me being on top of her and her pushing the camera all the way up to my camera, it looks like there's this gigantic gap between her and between the camera and the floor. When in reality, all of this is super, super small. Like, she's no taller than like 5 feet, but it looks like, I mean, it looks like she's almost a skyscraper with how distorted this is. Then, you know, obviously we've got her face, very obnoxious, very over the top, very, it's almost slapstick. And that's, I mean, that's what works. That's what we're going for. That looks, it feels of the era. So you definitely lean into stuff like that. And that also goes beyond just placing your camera up high. One thing I think is seriously underrated is playing with depth. And by that I mean creating a sense of space between your subjects, right? Especially with portraiture. So you notice that in this cover, same style. I believe this is the same look even. Literally, we've got the background, plain old background. We've got her in the midground, but then we've got her hand here in the foreground as well, right? Right on this, basically, left third and bottom third. Creating that depth makes this feel like it makes this picture feel larger than it is, and that's something you want to lean into, right? Just pushing as much energy, excitement, drama, tension. You're just trying to make your picture as loud as possible, right? She's got an angry face. You can see she's on the phone. It makes it feel like she doesn't want us looking at her, doesn't want us photographing her, doesn't want us to have anything to do with her. That is a clear look we're getting because of the way that we framed it, the way she's posing, and the way she's engaging with the camera, okay? Think about all that as you're photographing, because it makes a huge difference in the long run. And when you combine this with a super wide angle lens, you get some crazy cool shots. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about post-processing after you finish your shoot, about some things to look for that can really help elevate your shoot in the long run. So there are a couple things that are very key for the era of 2000s, and they all come down to similar things as before, right? Instead of being extreme, I want you to think bold, vibrant, loud, obnoxious, in your face. If you're doing something more on the grungy side, same things apply. You're just going for more loud, grungy style. If you're going for something a little bit more sci-fi or like 2000s techno, same deal. Bold, techno, vibrancy. It doesn't matter which sub-style of 2000s you're going for, this is going to be the exact same thing. And one of the easiest ways to do that is with the color choices you have. So in our case, our model is wearing fairly neutral colors: black and white, gray, black, white, gray, a little bit of gold here to add a little bit of pop. But you'll notice that all these pictures, in reality, before any post-processing was done, they look much closer to this, right? Plain white wall, fairly clean shots, similar style as this. Nice key. We got a little background gradient going on. We've got a little rim light, a little flare here, right? Basically, this is what all these shots looked like before we did any processing. But when it came down to it, we wanted to add a little bit of color to the shots to give them a little bit of character. So I knew immediately, because of the gold she's wearing in these pictures, I knew immediately I wanted to lean into that for all of the editing. And one of the most important tools, no matter what genre of 2000 you're looking at, is the colors, and specifically the use of complementary colors. Not to get too deep into color theory, because we can make a whole no bullshit guide just on that, but there are a gigantic list of ways you can use colors that will influence the way your images feel and look. One of the boldest and most obnoxious, loud 2000s color schemes there are what are called complementary colors. Don't worry too much. They're very easy. All complementary colors are just colors that are the exact opposite on the color wheel. So for example, if we have green, then the opposite of green is like this magenta-ish. Or in reality, it's more red. Orange, blue, teal, kind of this reddish orangish. So just think exact opposite colors in a wheel. Opposite colors, opposite colors, opposite colors. So with that in mind, we have this lovely gold just popping out. And in fact, let me go and get an unedited version. This is what we started with, right? Lovely, lovely gold. Now, if this is going to be our main color, because our blacks and our whites, they're neutral colors, they don't really influence anything too much unless you're going for that look. Because we're using gold, or in this case, yellow, then I knew that since I wanted to use complementary colors, then I wanted to use the opposite of yellow, which is purple-ish, right? Purplish, bluish. And in reality, we push colors a little bit more to be slightly more, I guess a little bit of yellowish here and a little bit of darker purplish here. We adjusted them slightly just to be more aesthetically appealing. But that's the idea, is yellow is going to be our dominant color. We're going to use purple to be our complementary color. And because those two colors feel opposite, they're bold, our eyes are drawn to them. And nowhere is that more obvious than just here in this simple logo. We use these two colors to guide us in designing everything else about this. And those colors are going to be prominent throughout all the edits. Now, a couple things to be aware when you're doing that. Just know that your skin tones do tend to sit in this range as well. So be a little bit careful when you're editing your colors, just to make sure you're still retaining your skin tone somewhat. But otherwise, make sure you're thinking about that as you're shooting. I'm also going to put up a couple different examples from other photographers, pictures from around here, so you can also see what that looks like from other people's perspective, but principle is the same. So just try and use that to your advantage as you're editing, because it makes a huge difference. But yeah, okay, no bullshit. That's all I did. It's nothing too fancy. I'll throw up a couple other pictures too while we're at it. And yeah, that's it. Catch you in the next one. Peace.